Hello, and welcome to this episode of This Movie Needs More Flavor. I'm Josh,
I'm Adam.
and today we look at just one of the numerous Shane Black action flicks set at Christmas time, the '96 release, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Directed by Rennie Harlan, cast includes Gina Davis as Samantha Kane, aka Charlie Baltimore, and Samuel L. Jackson as Mitch Hennessy, a low-rent PI tasked with the 8-year-old cold case of finding out who Samantha was prior to waking up on the riverside, 2 months pregnant with a severe case of amnesia. A car accident, attack by a one-eyed escapee, and discovery of a suitcase coincide to jumpstart Samantha/Charlie's memory as she and Mitch embark on an action-packed journey to uncover who Charlie is, why the CIA wants her dead, and what deadly conspiracy they must ultimately confront. Co-caster Adam, your thoughts?
I always enjoy a good Shane Black film. This one, though, I find to be a bit weaker than his normal movies. I first want to say that there's a scene in this movie of another movie that is actually The Long Goodbye, which is a great film all its own. And it's Elliot Gould looking for cat food. And I just want to throw that out there, but I digress. Shane Black films, for some reason, always take place or have some kind of Christmas feel to them. It's always a consistent theme with him, it's Christmas. I also noticed that he's a little like Tarantino in the sense that he can be very long-winded or witty at times, almost too stylish. I won't knock that, but it's almost too stylish at times where it's like, do people really talk like this? I don't really care so much, but I notice that every time, and that's one of his trademarks for me. I can almost tell if he's involved somehow. His movies also tend to have a scene where it's a dude in distress, like handcuffed, tied, or in this case, a damsel in distress with mustache-twirling villains, like right there on the side, ready to get him. So it's a little cliche, but for some reason, his movies manage to pull it off for me. Whether I find them great, really engaging, or just ho-hum.
And he is definitely an action writer, and as such, you're going to get hit with those cliches. And with Shane Black, you have the benefit of him selling them.
Right. He's very competent in what he does. There's a scene we're introduced to Brian Cox's character. I always find that scene funny because it seems to come out of nowhere, and it just shows how bored this character is, with the cat. He's bored. Oh God, get me out of here. And he gets so excited, and he's like back in action. Okay, now there are many parts throughout this movie I did find myself cringing, but I wasn't taking this movie too terribly serious. There is dialogue and certain things that happen that are just so cringeworthy. Like the little girl trying to get her mom up, that whole thing, like, on your feet. And then Gina Davis coming back with, you're grounded. Like, oh my goodness. Like, no, I wasn't buying it. I just wasn't buying it. That's my thing, though. That's my thing. All right. I guess it's because there's the female lead, the action lead. There seems to be a lot of more than standard aggression. Maybe the first couple of times I noticed, but it didn't really matter so much. But it's bitch this, bitch that. And like, I normally don't give a damn. But it's like they were trying to go out of their way to show a particular kind of aggression. In this movie, it stood out to me. And so it was kind of like needles every time that kind of thing happened.
Well, I agree. And it really doesn't play well, considering the people that act that way towards her are the ones who are well aware of her background.
Exactly.
I mean, they know who she is. They know what she's capable of. And they seem to be the ones who are underselling her.
Which is pretty stupid, considering they're the ones who have been trying to figure out what she knows. She's been dodging everything. That's pretty standard too. But yeah, I found it much more noticeable in this film. He actually earned $4 million for this film because he was in high demand at the time. And New Line Cinema, they were really eager to get their hands on somebody very successful and churn out an action blockbuster. And unfortunately for them, that gamble didn't pay off because this film It didn't really hit with the general audience. And Shane Black being paid so much allegedly caused a lot of bitterness and resentment. And because of interpersonal relationships, maybe the lack of success with this is one of the reasons Shane Black actually took almost a decade off away from making movies and writing. Well, making movies at least. In fact, this was also an unfortunate blow towards Rennie Harlin and Geena Davis, because before this film they had worked on Cutthroat Island, and they were hoping these films could pave the way for more women action stars at the time and kind of rejuvenate her career as well. That didn't quite go as planned, but it was definitely a valiant effort. And I remember Sam Jackson claiming this was actually his favorite role. I don't know if that's changed. It always struck me as kind of odd, but he's the guy who made the movie and he has his reasons, so apparently this is his favorite role. And that's my take on this film.
And with that, I definitely have to get into my appreciation for two characters once again, and we'll start with Samuel L. Jackson's Mitch Hennessy. And there's really not a better name for that character, and it just fits like spot on. But I like the dynamic of his character, and although I'll admit that this moment is shoehorned in, it's that moment with his son.
Oh, right, the gift.
And how the son can't accept it because he knows it's Jack. It's established here that Samuel L. Jackson is a well-intentioned screw-up. I would say that moment is shoehorned in. It shows up out of nowhere, and then it just goes away, and that's that. But it grounds his character in a presentation of someone who wants to do well, but is constantly coming up against conflict.
Because of that conflict, he rises above. He's an admirable character.
And through that, you see him as the guy who's keeping Samantha grounded. Not Charlie, Samantha. He's like, that's part of your character. You chose to be that person, so that says something. That person's somewhere in there. Well, at the same time, he's more or less a bum. And I mean, when we introduce to his character, he's surrounded by literal bums pulling a scam.
It really seems like when we first meet him, he's going to be sleazier than how he turns out. I actually appreciated how he turned out.
He forces her, like straight up forces her to reflect on who she is. That is admirable in its own right. So I got to hand it to his character. The next character, of course, is, as you mentioned before, Brian Cox. He plays Dr. Waldman, I believe. But every line that man has is priceless, of course. And as you said, the opening with him as he's trying to eat with the Pomeranian and its issue. I don't know why you wouldn't take a look at this film, but if you're not going to, you owe it to yourself to just Google that scene. Take a look. It's well worth it.
It'll either make you laugh or be relieved that you didn't watch the entire film, so you can't really lose.
Every line he's got is brutally spot on and totally condescending.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't necessarily feel the need to defend this movie, but I agree with you that there are some open criticisms about it. And considering what you just told me, I was unaware he got paid a stack for that screenplay.
Yeah, New Line was champing at the bit to get some kind of success. That's how desperate they were at the time.
I mean, of all the screenplays that man has delivered, this one is undoubtedly subpar. And for a $4 million note, that's insane. So I do have criticisms. I did enjoy the movie, but and number one criticism is the absolutely phoned in bad guy. Timmy, played by Craig Bierko. One, he doesn't have a solid line in the film. For a $4 million note, your bad guy does not have a solid line in the film. Okay? And he's cliche 90s bad guy. I mean, he just lines it. He's super clean cut, Armani suit wearing psycho who happens to be edgy as hell. Okay, I hadn't seen the movie in a few. Knew I was going to check it out again because I was on a Shane Black kick. And the opening narration kicked in. I was just like, nah. I'm not a huge fan of narration to tell exposition in the first place. And if you look at it, the entire VO is absolutely unnecessary. She's explaining what you're seeing, and there's instances, namely the introduction to her and her boyfriend interacting, and the interaction between Mitch and his assistant. Those are opportunities for clever exposition, for them to highlight information that we didn't know. And for those to be totally dismissed and for them to throw over a voiceover to explain everything to us like we can't figure that stuff out. I mean, at one point, she's saying, so sometimes I stare at myself naked in the mirror while I look at my scars. During a scene where she's staring at herself naked, looking at her scars. Like, did she really need to tell us that? So that is my main criticism. But that is 100% and admittedly a pet peeve of mine in movies in general. So I won't hold it 100% against them. Now, having aired my criticisms, I still believe that this is a solid film, and I have a solid appreciation for it. As I said, I was on a Shane Black run at the time. And mainly I decided to revisit this because I was like, oh yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, I'll check it out again. One of the key things that gets me is, of course, the action sequences. There are some standout scenes. Say what you will for some phoned-in moments. The action is never phoned in.
If anything saves this movie, it is the action. And Gina Davis and Samuel L. Jackson do a tremendous job at what they're given.
Well, the fight scene with the one-eyed guy, the cutback, and the encounter in the kitchen, both of those are brutal, absolutely brutal scenes. And the initial one, he warns him, don't screw around, don't play doctor, because she's gonna make you pay for it. And of course, the dude, he's got to screw around. He's got to play doctor. And the moment he hits flesh, her eyes just bolt open, and he's got a syringe stuck in and broken off in his eye. And it is masterful that you get to see that for like about 2 solid seconds. You see a broken syringe just darting around in his eyeball. It is beautiful. And then to top that off with her finally killing him, and the whole, chefs do that, is priceless. That was priceless. And then you tie that in with the entire, I would say, last at least half an hour of the movie, which is nothing but gunfire, explosions, and ridiculous antics. It is nothing but just intensity and just rawness and Samuel L. Jackson firing out of the back of an 18-wheeler to save the day.
You know what? I'm going to crap on this just a little bit more. I'm sorry, man.
Go for it.
The president scene at the end when she's driving around Thelma and Louise style. Well, why don't you come work for me, little lady? It'll be a hoot and a holler. I don't know about that, Mr. President. I've got other things to do. I'm a busy woman. Like,
Hey, that's absolutely fair, and I neglect that part of the film so much that it's not even there for me.
You've probably just blocked it out.
I'll block it. When all said and done, my criteria for a solid action movie is witty banter and big explosions. If you're capable of delivering both of those things in excess, the more the merrier. And Shane Black's always solid for that. And this movie does not fail in that. So I enjoyed it. I'll definitely watch it again. But when I do, those aspects of it I did not appreciate will still get under my skin. But regardless, they will be drowned out simply by Brian Cox's performance and Samuel L. Jackson's, definitely.
Yeah, and regardless of what I've said, if you're in the mood for something you don't really have to think about, action, little bit of intrigue, that sort of thing they're going for, then by all means, check it out. If you've never seen it, at least once, check it out. Special thanks to Colin Root for Blackout, courtesy of Toontank.com.
Thanks for joining us on This Movie Needs More Flavor. If you enjoyed what you heard, you could always like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow us on Instagram. All that fun and flavorful stuff that really helps us out a bunch. Our info is in the bio.
And thanks for listening to us sprinkle a little spice on the long kiss goodnight. Take care.